A normal day that turned into a nightmare. That day, I had no idea what was coming. Like always, I woke up early, got dressed, and headed to school. Everything seemed ordinary. The morning mist, the drizzle, the wet streets, and the familiar road that led to the place where I spent most of my days, school. It wasn't a place where I felt particularly safe, but at least it offered some kind of order in the world. I usually took the bus, but for some reason, my eyes caught sight of a taxi parked under an old tree. It felt odd. I almost never took taxis, but something about this one pulled me toward it. The driver was already watching me, his hands resting on the steering wheel, waiting. I got in without thinking too much. The driver smiled, an unsettling, calm kind of smile. He was middle-aged, with streaks of gray in his hair and kind eyes. But now looking back, I realized those eyes weren't kind at all. They were watching, calculating. "Hey there, kid. Name's Frank Woodward. Used to be a janitor at a hospital before I started driving taxis. You heading to school?" he asked. I nodded. His voice was warm, almost comforting, but there was something beneath it. Something I should have noticed. He offered me a bottle of water. I didn't think twice. I took a sip. The taste was off. Bitter, chemical. Within seconds, the world blurred, waking up in the basement. When I opened my eyes, everything had changed. I wasn't in the taxi anymore. I wasn't safe. I was in a dark, damp basement. My limbs felt heavy, my head pounded. The air was thick with mold and something worse, something rotten. I tried to move, but my body wasn't responding properly. My legs felt weak, my hands numb. The walls around me were rough concrete, cold against my back. A rusted metal door stood at the far end, the only way out. Panic settled deep in my chest. Then, I heard the footsteps, slow, deliberate. Someone was coming. The door creaked open. It was him, Frank Woodward. But now he was different. He wore a mask, a plain white face with hollow black eyes. I couldn't see his real face, but I could feel his gaze burning into me. In his hand, he held an old leather case, the kind that smelled of hospitals and death. "You'll be here for 7 days," he said in a low, steady voice. 7 days of pain, fear, and waiting. When you die, I'll take your body to the morgue, and I'll get paid. Your life is just a transaction, kid." I wanted to scream, to tell him this had to be a joke. But deep inside, I already knew it wasn't. Maybe I died in that basement. Maybe I never left. Maybe I'm still there, trapped in the cold darkness. But if I survived, I don't remember how. I woke up in my own bed one morning, safe, untouched. But I was different. Frank Woodward wasn't just a taxi driver. He wasn't just a man. He was something else. Something that still watches. And now, every time I step into a taxi, I wonder, who's really behind the wheel? Because I know this world is full of things you can't see, but they can see you. Each day was worse than the last. Frank wasn't reckless. He wasn't mindlessly cruel. He was patient. He knew exactly how to break me. He didn't just hurt me. He made me afraid. Every day he played a new game. He'd sit across from me and whisper things, horrible things, about the others who had been here before me, about the ones who never made it out, about how no one was looking for me, how no one would ever find me. He brought food sometimes. I never touched it. I didn't trust anything he gave me. By the 6th day, I had lost all sense of time. The darkness became my only companion. Sleep was a distant memory, hunger a dull ache I had learned to ignore. Then, on the 7th day, Frank stood before me. No mask this time. "You did well, kid," he said almost admiringly. "But it's time." His face was expressionless, his eyes void of anything human. He pulled something from his case, a scalpel, glinting in the dim light. I knew this was it.